terms of what you were saying about who is buying up agricultural land, the statistics I saw show that year on year, increasingly, agricultural land that comes up for sale is being bought by non-farmers. Now I can get writing to you because that comes from the Treasury, so I get the detail of that and write to you about precisely how they define a non-farmer. I mean, I can make as good a guess as you from the language that is being used, that it's somebody that wasn't farming previously. But if you look at it year on year, more and more agricultural land is going to those people, and year on year, the value of land is going up way above inflation. I think for the last year, it was something like twice the rate of inflation for non-agricultural land or property prices in general. And that's been a trend going on for quite a long time. So I suspect a part of that is being driven by wealthy individuals who are buying up agricultural land, potentially as a means to avoid an inheritance tax liability. And some of them will be very open about that. If you're listening to tax advisors or tax consultants, some of them will freely give this opinion in public. One of the best ways to shield a large amount of money from inheritance tax is to buy agricultural land. Now, that's not because they're interested in farming or in food security or food production. It's because they're interested in avoiding that liability that they would otherwise incur.
I think the best help would actually be to reconsider. You say you're listening, but it is really very much listening with closed ears at this point. One of my main concerns as well is that you have sort of set the threshold very low at 1 million. And one of my questions is why, if you are actually wanting to tax those very, very, very wealthy farms, then why didn't you set it at an appropriate level? Because you must appreciate you are directly targeting the working farmers that you're so trying to protect. Because again, another question, do you even know how much sort of a new tractor and a new combine harvester will cost? Because 3 of those sort of vehicles, which are the working equipment, will take you to the 1 million threshold. So why didn't you set the threshold higher? Because you're automatically pulling them in at this point.
You say we should listen, I should listen, but I think that applies to all of us in Parliament as well. And if you listen to the public in the countryside as well as elsewhere,
which we are,
and I saw data on the views of people in the countryside just yesterday, their top issue is the cost of living and how that's affecting them. Their second issue is the National Health Service and the decrepit state of that. If this government had not taken action to plug the £22 billion black hole that we were left by the previous government, and that is just to stand still, then the cost of living crisis would simply get worse and worse and worse, as it did under the previous government, and the National Health Service would continue in free fall, as it did under the previous government. Now, you can't just magic money out of nowhere to fix these problems. Liz Truss tried that, and it crashed the economy and made it worse. Now, the £1 million threshold for many people will be far higher in reality than £1 million. If you're a couple with a property and you're passing on to a family member, that becomes £3 million. A lot of people would think that £3 million of assets being passed on to an heir without incurring inheritance tax is quite generous. And not only that, but when the inheritance tax liability occurs, it's at half the rate that anyone else would have to pay. And instead of being paid in one go like anyone else, it can be spread over 10 years. That is still a generous package of support for people, but it will only apply to the wealthiest individuals and the biggest farms. As I said all the way through this, the vast majority of estates will pay nothing as a result of these changes.